Story 1. Walking into people's houses and smashing their pots to look for rupees. Story 2. Jaywalking, I guess. Supermarket simulator making deliveries. Story 3. Mass murder of fish and releasing unknown chemicals into the ocean. Man, people for the ethical treatment of animals would be after me. Story 4. Based on Civilization 7. I am the leader of a communist superpower that rules 2/3 of a supercontinent, plus small conquered territories here and there. In other words, I am not getting arrested. I am being overthrown when the multicultural empire that I built collapses, and then I will probably face mob justice. Story 5. Breaking, entering, and assault with a hoe on a Wednesday. Story 6. Killing O'Driscolls, Pinkertons, and other non-player characters for fun. Story 7. Smashing everything in sight like I am the Hulk. The new Donkey Kong game is very good. Story 8. Mass murder, cannibalism, torture, assault with a deadly weapon, kidnapping, and indignity to human remains. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Story 9. Undemocratically kissing my girlfriend without the proper permit. Sweet Liberty. Save me. Story 10. Financial irregularities related to football management in Football Manager 2024. Story 11. Capturing and keeping exotic animals by throwing balls at them. Story 12. Death Stranding 2 involves delivering packages all over Australia. So, is that trespassing? Assault for beating up armed survivalists? Story 13. Assaulting children in residential neighborhoods. South Park, The Stick of Truth. Story 14. Harvesting organs, making clothes from human leather, and creating food with human meat to sell on the black market. RimWorld new downloadable content. Story 15. Shooting a civilian while trying to shoot a criminal. Story 16. Breaking into all the buildings in a village and stealing all the belongings from people's personal chests. Story 17. Terraforming an uncharted planet, specifically harvesting raw material resources that a technology company claimed before the planet was discovered. Story 18. Stealing everything from someone's house and still guessing the ghost incorrectly. Story 19. Killing the populations of various species across the entire planet. Story 20. I do not know if I would get arrested for doing major things in cities. Skylines, but I crash drivers I do not like very hard in NASCAR games. Story 21. I will be arrested for stealing all the clothes and turning the population of Whiterun into a nudist colony. Story 22. Arrested? No. Loitering is punishable by death. Story 23. Setting myself on fire while killing 4 people with a hammer. Story 24. The last game I played was Palia. The worst issue I encountered was excessive gambling, which resulted in being placed in a timeout chair for a few hours. Story 25. Modded Minecraft. I used resources generated by my Mine Colonies town to build my own house, so corruption and embezzlement, I guess. The game before that was Helldivers 2. Definitely getting arrested for thought crimes and sent to a freedom camp. Story 26. Playing RoboCop. Everyone else gets arrested or shot. Dead or alive, you are coming with me. Story 27. Time traveling and changing history. Chrono Trigger, Game Boy Advance. Story 28. Money laundering from trafficking drugs and illegal weapons. Story 29. Unauthorized time travel and the illegal creation of a stable time loop, repeated violation of the Geneva Convention, general war crimes, mass murder of the general population of an entire solar system while looking absolutely fabulous doing it, possible genocide, actual genocide, regularly invading a kingdom that exists in a different dimension, chemical and biological warfare, sabotage, assassination of multiple high-profile targets, kidnapping, joyriding various potentially unauthorized or unlicensed vehicles, including a strange-looking horse on private property and through various military, agricultural, and manufacturing installations, breaking and entering, space piracy, industrial espionage, possession of an army's worth of weapons of mass destruction, theft and destruction of priceless artifacts, and data theft. Story 30. Still in Act 1, so trespassing in a strange land in an attempt to kill an artist. But I have a feeling there is more to the story of Expedition 33 than that. Story 31. I'm pretty sure the shack I built in the video game Terraria is not up to code. Also, destroying zombies might count as desecrating a corpse. Story 32. Reckless driving. Farm simulator. The roads have no laws. Story 33. Breaking everything. Donkey Kong Bonanza and he literally smashes everything. It is great. Story 34. 6 counts of child neglect. I have 4 infants and 2 babies with only 1 adult sim. Story 35. Disturbing the peace or battery. It depends on what they would charge me for throwing weighted jack-o'-lanterns onto several thousand massively multiplayer online game players' heads in Durotor. Story 36. Killing people with a sword, shotgun, machine pistol, sniper rifle, and machine gun. Plus using magic powers to manipulate and incapacitate them until I could. It was Bright Memory Infinite on PC. Oh, and by the way, my condolences to the Osborne family and the Hogan family. Story 37. Beating 3 teams of 4 people senseless while dressed as He-Man. Story 38. Firing a minigun at police cars and a helicopter after robbing a small-town bank. I assume that is considered a crime. Story 39. Whatever Minthara tells me to do, which could be anything, really. Story 40. Accidentally setting off a tactical nuclear weapon while trying to select the Juggernaut killstreak. Story 41. Assassin's Creed Origins. Killing someone in ancient Egypt and getting caught. Story 42. Destruction of company property, trespassing, assault, theft, tampering with evidence, 2 counts of murder with a firearm. Story 43. Breaking into nuclear facilities and hiding in cardboard boxes to avoid surveillance cameras. Story 44. Mass murder. Someone has to take out Caesar's Legion. Fallout, New Vegas. Story 45. I was playing Diablo 3, grinding rifts. Maybe charged with causing the extinction of demon hordes. Story 46. Killing a city or military leader. Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Story 47. Various war crimes committed using unconventional gadgets and a hammer. Story 48. Probably some hate crime involving placing little people in a hole in the ground. Dwarf Fortress. Story 49. Helping Mexican revolutionaries overthrow their oppressive government because I got sidetracked looking for 2 gang members that I need to bring to justice. Story 50. Well, I am playing The Last of Us Part 2, so I am probably getting arrested for stealing and murder. Story 51. Well, I played Final Fantasy XIV recently. I think I let my tank die, but he is okay now. Story 52. Probably arrested for base jumping or gliding off the top of a pyramid. Guild Wars 2. Story 53. Multiple genocides and extreme damage to nature are certain. I was questing in World of Warcraft, so I killed hundreds per hour. Story 54. Hacking servers, phones, vehicles, smart homes, and hitting people with vehicles. Story 55. Being upset because Bungie ruined Destiny 2 at the moment, as my Space Mage Warlock is very weak. Story 56. Ready or not. I was trying to kill a suspect who took a civilian hostage. Accidentally shot a 5.56 armor-piercing round through the civilian's head but still managed to kill the suspect. Story 57. Deck Bonanza. Assault and battery on almost everything around me. Story 58. Apparently walking around with a deceased fetus in a container on my chest. Story 59. Slavery and human and animal trafficking. Pal World. Story 60. Hunt. Showdown 1896. Unauthorized time travel and murder. Story 61. Rimworld. Making people eat without a table, I guess. Just kidding. Story 62. Enslavement, kidnapping, genocide, fraud, tax evasion, 70 accounts of murder, 5 accounts of aggravated manslaughter, theft, torture, animal cruelty, counterfeiting, possession of weapons of mass destruction, forced breeding camps, and lastly stalking in Minecraft. Story 63. Wars of aggression, assassination, bribery, genocide, Rome Total War 2. Story 64. Oh, this is going to sound bad. Claiming babies, raising them, and throwing them into a meat grinder when they reach adulthood. Story 65. I was an ex-heretic in prison, but now I am reformed, purging other heretics in Darktide. Story 66. I just played Doom 2016. I do not think I need to elaborate. Story 67. Illegal possession of firearms and prescription medication. Story 68. Vagrancy, killing small animals with a long quarterstaff. Story 69. Tales of Arise. I am probably facing severe punishment for killing dictators and committing acts that those in power would likely consider domestic terrorism. Story 70. Kidnapping a princess for the same reason she decided to run away. Story 71. War crimes via execution of prisoners in Arma 3. We do not have time for that as a helicopter gunner. Story 72. Strip mining destroys endangered species. Satisfactory. Story 73. Arms dealing, fishing without a license, thousands of counts of breaking and entering and theft, interfering with the dead, unauthorized access to military bases and buildings without planning permission. Story 74. Various war crimes occurred after leading Wallachia to glorious victories over Serbia and then Bosnia during the Age of History II, 1440 AD campaign. Story 75. Animal Crossing. Taking a villager hostage for not letting them leave. Story 76. Mass murder, property damage, theft of ancient artifacts, assault and murder of several gods, and illegal use of mythical weapons. Story 77. Growing illegal plants, specifically farming herbs in old-school RuneScape. Story 78. Genocide, war crimes, and similar atrocities. Warhammer Rogue Trader. Story 79. I mounted a 20mm autocannon on my truck in Stormworks. Violation of the National Firearms Act. 20mm autocannons are considered prohibited destructive devices under the National Firearms Act. Penalties include 10 years in federal prison and a $250,000 fine. Unlawful modification of a vehicle as a weapon platform. Criminal intimidation charges may apply. Driving a truck resembling an ISIS vehicle in public is likely to cause panic. This situation will definitely trigger Department of Homeland Security protocols. Story 80. Absolutely dominating the New York Yankees as the Toronto Blue Jays in Major League Baseball 2024. Story 81. Killing people and being a rebel and traitor to the crown. Oh, and for that betrayal. Assassin's Creed 3. Story 82. Animal fighting, animal cruelty, endangered species endangerment, and probably racketeering. I have been playing Pokemon on the Nintendo Switch. Story 83. Payday 2 involves armed robbery, holding hostages, killing approximately 1,200 police officers, evading arrest, property damage, and terrorism. Story 84. Back to the dawn, I would be arrested for escaping prison. Story 85. Environmental destruction, I guess. I was playing Astroneer and was hollowing out huge chunks of a planet. Story 86. Burglary, trespassing, defacing public property, vandalism, a series of incidents involving the lack of proper warrants, rights, or due process in order to build or farm, improperly discharging a firearm within city limits, mild arson, building explosives and using them. Oddly enough, not a single count of murder, technically. Project Zomboid is fun. Story 87. Failure to pay taxes, grand theft, piracy, murder, but most likely drug smuggling. Star Citizen. Story 88. Digging without permits or something similar. A game about digging a hole. Story 89. Speeding and a few other traffic violations. Forza does that to me sometimes. I enjoy the speed. Story 90. Giving 13-year-old girls piggyback rides while smashing rocks. Story 91. A felony narcotics charge with possession of a Schedule I controlled substance. Story 92. Smuggling a deceased infant across state lines, assault with a deadly weapon, Grand Theft Auto, also known as Death Stranding 2. Story 93. Making Angola a nuclear-armed socialist economic powerhouse and stabilizing the Democratic Republic of the Congo in the face of Rwandan and Ugandan aggression. History will absolve me. I have been playing the Millennium Dawn modification for Hearts of Iron 4. Unless you count Project M, in which case the charge must be jamming too close to the sun. Story 94. City Smash, destruction of a city and use of military weapons. Story 95. Tileman, extreme speed. I guess maybe land theft and murder. Story 96. I'm not sure when I last played World of Warcraft. We are basically bounty hunters with the questing. Most of the quests come from people in positions of power. Story 97. Cyberpunk lets you do a lot of illegal activities. I do them all when I can. Story 98. Finding a ship's wheel, a button that is green, a wooden face, a clock face, ghost machine, a soundbox game 1, 2 scissors, a cork, circuit board, a goggles, and a fork. Story 99. Minecraft. So probably something like violating multiple zoning laws. Story 100. Robbing a multimillionaire's private island for a bottle of tequila. Grand Theft Auto Online. Story 101. Skateboarding where I should not. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 Remaster. Story 102. Some balance of murder, conspiracy, corporate sabotage, espionage, and more. Story 103. Hijacking droid mines so I can easily eviscerate the troopers they were supposed to protect with my lightsaber. Get some. Story 104. Walking around with a giant sword and killing farmers' livestock. Story 105. Technically domestic terrorism. Ghost of Tsushima. My actions are not honorable. Story 106. Sending massive floating purple poison balls across a 30-yard area using advanced experimental technology derived from unauthorized practices. Story 107. Speeding, reckless driving, ignoring yield signs at intersections, narrowly escaping an accident, failing to maintain your lane, and hit and run. Story 108. Harvesting pumpkins. I thought Stardew Valley was a quite innocent game. Story 109. Entering restricted airspace with a car, a Nissan 350Z, without permission. Also a hit and run. Story 110. I stabbed a potentially endangered reptile and seemingly freed a blonde woman in a bubble, but she may be on the autism spectrum, so I don't know how morally correct it would be to engage in any intercourse with her despite her attractive appearance. However, I had to kill multiple creatures simply to gain access to the chamber where she was being held. A few were called giddy goons. A black knight attacked me. It was not racially motivated. He was attempting to electrocute me, so I'm pretty sure it qualifies as self-defense. Story 111. Speeding and firing weapons recklessly while speeding. The last game I played was Grip. Story 112. Slaughtering an uncomfortable amount of wildlife in the pursuit of saving post-apocalyptic Hyrule from Gammon. Story 113. Shooting up Van Horn because somebody looked at me the wrong way. Red Dead Redemption 2. Story 114. Minecraft. So, human rights abuses, destroying public property, counterfeiting currency, slavery, practicing medicine without a license, obtaining and using high-yield explosives, and associating with the undead, and wasting time. Story 115. Oh my, that's quite the list. Cyberpunk 2077, and my last play was not quiet. It was not too egregious, no maximum tactical calls, but still several police officers and a few dozen other people. Probably some innocents. Usually at least one lunges in front of my car. Yes, probably the firing squad for me. Story 116, well, Call of Duty, so mass murder and creative bankruptcy. Story 117. Saving Princess Zelda really seems like a silly reason to get arrested. Story 118. Destruction of property, I guess. Playing Lego Star Wars and many of those games is just breaking everything. Story 119. Destroying everything and everyone in town so I can eat their supply of bananas. Story 120. Unregistered nuclear reactor on my unregistered spacecraft. Story 121. Breaking and entering, destruction of property, building without permits, possession of illegal weapons, and murder. I still play Fortnite, only original generation though. Story 122. For stealing a car and then driving it to a payday loan storefront, which I robbed at gunpoint. Story 123. Egregious environmental violations, occupational health and safety violations, nuclear non-proliferation violations, poaching. Satisfactory. Story 124. Murdering thousands of zombies with my plants does not seem like an arrestable offense. Maybe for taking their coins after I kill them or something. Story 125. Murder. A whole lot of murder. But could I perhaps go for self-defense? I mean, sure, making a wall of ice to mash their head in or using the help of my shadow to rip them in literal half might not fall under proportional force. But they were trying to brutally murder me too. Mortal Kombat. Story 126. Upsetting Jack Black with my impressive skateboarding tricks from Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4. Story 127. Does summoning a god in the middle of New York count? If not, then voluntary manslaughter. Story 128. Beating the characters from Pokemon, Fire Emblem, and Star Fox. Story 129. Starting a war because I sent an offer to my neighbor that was so ridiculous he would definitely decline. Afterwards, I occupied his territory and united Tilia and Estalia under one banner. So, the war criminal court, I think, is for me. Story 130. Like a dragon, infinite wealth, probably fighting in public. Story 131. Reckless use of magic resulting in the accidental death of a kitten. Talamir 2 for Android. Story 132. Slavery, murder, organ harvesting, environmental damage, mass terrorism, cannibalism, desecration of corpses, torture, illicit genetic modifications, religious persecution, and driving without a license. Story 133. Well, it was ready or not, so I guess it was for all of the unauthorized use of deadly force. Sorry, team. Story 134. Killing National Socialist German Workers' Party zombies. Just an aging gamer who cannot move on. Story 135. Dealing with some rather questionable substances. They are not really drugs, but they still are not quite safe. If you manage to guess what I am playing, do not judge me. Story 136. Speeding, illegal street racing, and attempted vehicular manslaughter in Mario Kart World. Story 137. Pokemon, I think we know the reasons. Or Mytopia for mass extermination of monsters. Story 138. Illegally towing a car that was farther away from the crosswalk than I thought. Police simulator patrol officers. Story 139. Oh God. Murder, Grand Theft Auto, probably some sort of domestic terrorism. Invading military sites and stealing military equipment. Crimes against humanity. Pretty much everything under the sun. The game is Grand Theft Auto. San Andreas. Story 140. Probably nothing. I will be known as the babbling nut who talks about dinosaurs in the woods killing people. Oakwood is a fun game. Story 141. Killing a large majority of the military-aged male population of feudal Japan. Story 142. The Rising. I'd say vampirism, but the real reason is just wanton massacre. Story 143. If we are talking about phone games, I would probably be arrested for taking all the screws out of buildings. In video games, it would be reckless driving. Story 144. Trespassing into military-controlled zone. That is if they do not shoot me on sight. Hey there, stalker. Story 145. Wow, nothing. There are no police, only the Inquisition and a group of ghost pirates. Story 146. Warframe. In the game universe, nothing in real life. Mass murder, mass destruction of property, stealing worth billions, gene-altering animals, feeding and infestation, use of weapons of mass destruction in and outside of war, and probably a lot more. Story 147. Multiple war crimes including but not limited to execution and mistreatment of prisoners, use of chemical weapons, use of autonomous weapons platforms, environmental devastation, use of weapons to maim or injure, human experimentation, toxic waste dumping, sport killing of endangered species. Story 148. I heard you can go into school when Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out. Ask me then. Story 149. Pyromancy, murder, vandalism, and other serious threats. Soul consumption without consent. Story 150. Accidentally killing someone with my dragon claws in Roblox Dragon's Life. Story 151. I would be falsely put on trial for the abduction of a princess, whom I actually love and who loves me too. Then all the gathered evidence would be legitimate accounts from witnesses of me being an absolute jerk at a festival. At that festival, I met the princess by not looking where I was going and knocking her over. Oh, and also because I ate an old man's bento box. Story 152. Making androids sentient, then having them start a revolution in Detroit. Become human. Story 153. All kinds of war crimes. I chopped off the legs of a prisoner because they kept trying to escape. I needed them to draw their blood to feed the vampire with psychic powers who completely eliminated a war raid from a tribe of pigmen. Story 154. Every type of war crimes imaginable. Warframe. Literally every war crime I have done it 100 times over. Story 155. Reckless dumping of nuclear waste, unlawful possession of explosives, violation of non-proliferation treaties, numerous ecological catastrophes, and some occupational safety and health administration violations. Story 156. Occupational safety and health administration violation. Still wakes the deep. Edit. It might have been Minecraft, and if it was, then every crime known to mankind and more. Story 157. War crimes. But really, does the Geneva Convention apply to aliens? Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.